We're good to go whenever.
All right, good morning. We are in Hollywood, California. Good morning, fellas. This is the Launch Podcast. I am Zach Barbias, and today we are hanging out with good friend and college football teammate, Mr. Brent Kraft. What's up, Brent?
What's going on? That was quite the intro.
And we have co-host Mr. Rob Starbuck over here as well. But once again, this is the Launch Podcast. You can find us on social at Launch Livin'. You can find myself on Instagram at Zach Barbias. That's ZACBARBIASZ. You can find Rob on Instagram at starbuck.rob. And then the talent himself, Mr. Brent Kraft, at Brent Kraft. And then most importantly, what we're sitting down to chat about today is Ladylike Movie. And that is at Ladylike Movie. You can find that on Instagram, and you can watch it and buy it. You should definitely buy it. You're going to laugh the whole time. You can do that on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, and YouTube. And once again, that is Ladylike Movie. You're going to love it. The whole theater was laughing for all 90 minutes. Sounds outrageous, but I promise we'll give you your money back if you don't like it. Can I say that?
That's street legal.
All right, great. But yeah, we're gonna have a little chat this morning and just try to dig into the process of what it's like to create your first film, and just hope that maybe Brent can take us through all that and be some funny outtakes, this and that. Anyways, we'll hop right into it. And my big question for you, Brent, is how does a guy that plays college football and is a total dude come up with a script in a movie that is female focused? Yeah, I would just like to hear of its origins to start, I guess.
Yeah. I really loosely based, and it just started off a couple scenes originally. But there's some girlfriends of mine in college that I thought were really funny. I've always loved movies like Superbad, etc., and I hadn't seen many of those type of films starring female characters. So that's sort of what spurred the initial scenes that I wrote, and it kind of all built from there.
Were you just writing scenes without a movie in your head? You were just like, I'm just going to write a scene about girls in college.
Originally, I was just writing random scenes. They weren't completely connected. They were of the same world, because I always feel like with a comedy, to create a special comedy, not that I've done that, I feel like...
Come on. Yeah. Yes, you have. I laughed a lot at that movie.
I feel like you have to find and strike a new angle in on humor. And so I was really trying to search and find something that just felt fresh. So I would write scenes in like different spaces, and one of that being this college girl world. And I really liked it, and the few people I showed it to, including sort of this one manager I was working with, liked it as well, and then we sort of developed it from there.
So we're 6, 7, 8 years out of college. Where did you retroactively go back and think about all these funny things that happened, between yourself and these ex-girlfriends or the girls that you were basing this movie off of, or loosely basing it off of, or was it all just like freestyling now, fast forward a few years later, just like thinking back and freestyling it? Or were you like sitting bedside in college, like writing down like, oh, so-and-so just did this,
No, I wasn't creepily journaling. I should have, though, if I was more studious. I actually, so somewhere in between, I wrote this movie 4 years ago. I actually started it when I was living on one of my best friend's couch in Boston. I started writing these scenes, and this was a few years out of college. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, I remember the first billboard for Girls on HBO went up, and I was like, shit, there's my idea. But I ended up still developing the script.
Hell yeah.
And I really believed in it, but I couldn't get it off the ground, so I put it on the shelf, and I was developing another project with a co-writer that was getting more traction, and I essentially circled back to this. So much of it was written a few years ago and then punched up just before we went into production.
Awesome. So you were living on a couch.
I was correct.
The struggle is real.
The struggle is quite real.
That's awesome. I've lived on many couches myself. Most recently, about 6 months ago. So.
I slept on a couch last night.
Rob and I actually crashed at Brent's place last night. I pulled out my sleeping pad and sleeping bag from my car, which doubles as my adventure home, and Rob drove his home over here, actually. So we're all in this boat together.
Oh, yeah.
How about quickly, you could give us a description. Tell everyone what the movie is about and what it is.
Yeah. Essentially, it's a comedy about girls in college, and it's about a friendship between two best friends and what happens to a friendship when a relationship comes in between it. Within that, or sort of maybe more generally speaking, I really tried to capture the college experience and some of the trivial things that happen, but how truly important they not only seem but are during that period of time in your life. So it's a little broader than just that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it was almost... So it was mostly shot at Georgetown University or around it. Is that right? I mean, I recognized quite a few places. I mean, I stumbled out a lot of those places. It gave me some PTSD. She never called me.
We primarily shot at Georgetown in Washington, D.C., but the campus scenes to the film actually were shot at Princeton in New Jersey.
I thought so. That's interesting. Yeah, that is okay. Is it hard to get location stuff in making a film? I mean, or is it more of like a convenience, this and that?
I would say it's relatively difficult. Getting a campus was the most difficult of any location, which I guess makes sense. Luckily, especially in Washington, D.C., there's still a little bit of a novelty to making a feature film, and businesses and organizations were willing to work with us. I imagine on the West Coast and in Los Angeles, you're sort of less novel, and people are likely less willing to work with you for free.
Yeah, they want a piece of the pie. Exactly. That's funny. And then, like, how do you... The characters, the actors, the actresses in the film, I thought were hysterical, and they were really good. And they seem to fit the mold of the movie, like, really well. Tell us about the casting process. Like, that seems... How does that work out? I mean, how do you just go out and find these unique and what seem like perfect characters for this movie?
Yeah.
You know?
The casting, and much credit to Matthew Nemeth, one of the other producers on board from Georgetown as well, actually. We really put our heart and soul into casting and sort of being tedious in the process and as diligent as possible. And at first we didn't know what we're doing, and throughout the process we didn't really know what we were doing. We were learning as we went. But initially we were just casting off of a free platform called Backstage. And we were holding auditions, and we got such an outpour of support from young actresses. We're sort of like, wow, people are really feeling this. Maybe we could actually continue to reach even higher and higher for some of the lead parts. So we found a couple amazing actresses for some of the smaller parts on Backstage, and then we ended up bringing on a casting director to make some of these more official offers to bigger actresses. And they actually all went quite well, which was super exciting for us, meaning I think everyone we offered accepted the part, which was really exciting.
How many auditions did you go through for these parts?
So on Backstage, you can record yourself and upload it. We, no joke, probably watched over 10,000 auditions.
Get out of here, 10,000
Yeah.
for one role? Or just as
for all 6 girls in the house, I would say.
10,000? Holy shit.
Something close to that. I would say somewhere in the 5,000 plus to be safe. Yeah.
Do you know as soon as you see someone start talking, you're like, nah, next one?
Yeah, you do, and not to discredit anyone's ability or anything. It's like about finding the right fit,
What
right?
your vision is, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, this person's. Some of the best actresses we saw just weren't right for any of the parts, and we're like, this girl's amazing. I don't know what to do with her. I feel bad
Stick her in a
clicking
coffee
next.
shop.
Yeah, it's like
Wish I had a movie for you.
Exactly.
Like maybe we can make some
I know,
magic
this-
happen.
Absolutely, and there definitely was a couple moments like that. Like one girl I got connected to, and she's been in a TV show, and she was great, and I just didn't know where to put her. I was like, I should write something else for you, or try to, because you're amazing. But she didn't. It's about finding the right fit, you know.
But you got Beverly D'Angelo
Correct.
in your movie.
That
I was
that was
jacked
awesome.
up when I saw her come
That was
out.
great.
Because Babs in Entourage was like one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
she's fantastic.
She's great, and she
Got
definitely
to roll down real nice.
She nailed it.
Yeah.
No, working with her was really interesting, and for me, it was a learning process because, you know, it was much different than working with anyone else on set, based solely off of how much experience she has. So when she would do something, sometimes it would almost perplex me at first until I comprehended what she was doing. So like with each take, she would try sort of a new approach and a new angle to the joke or to the line. And at first I'm like, well, you know, where's she going with it? And I couldn't follow. And very quickly I was like, oh, okay, I get what's happening.
She's a pro. Take the wheel, man.
Yeah. Oh, no, very much I was, you know, I would give minimal notes and was mostly trying to learn and just work with her.
So it seems like for something like this, it's quite the endeavor. I mean, I know you've been in the industry now for, what's crazy to say, but like nearly a decade, right? I mean, right out of college, and you're even like writing stuff in college, which I wasn't aware of. It seems like for something like this, having a mentor or mentors would be very significant. I mean, you're going out into like an open sea and trying to guide some ship home. Did you have any specific mentors? I mean, you don't have to drop names or whatnot if you don't want to, but like, do you have anything to say if you don't on mentor? If you did this all on your own, high five. But like, do you have anything to say about mentors? Did you have any mentors? Was there someone that really helped, you know, you guide this thing to where you brought it? Anything like that?
Yeah, I actually, so I was living in Los Angeles. I thought I was getting close to selling a spec script with one that I had co-written. It didn't happen. I got frustrated and moved back to New York, and that's actually when I met a mentor of mine named Strauss Zelnick, who's a very successful businessman, but he also used to be president of Fox back in the day. This was, you know, quite a few years ago. I explained to him the situation I was at, and he really helped clarify sort of what I should do, the next steps, advised me to do a Kickstarter, which is really what kicked this all off. And that was hugely crucial. I'm not sure I would have even made the movie without some of his advice and guidance and even the confidence he sort of instilled with me in even just making something and putting it out there and taking the chance and that allowing you just to figure out, you know, where you should be going moving forward. So I think I wish everybody had a mentor, and I could probably use one in the writing space or in different sort of facets, but I thought it was hugely important, and I'm not sure I would have made this movie without a mentor like him, kind of helping me figure it all out.
Yeah, I mean, a tangible mentor is, I think, so significant. I'm yet to really, no discredit to anyone out there that would consider themselves a mentor of mine, but I'm still falling short of finding like an actual human figure that I know that is a mentor. Like all my mentors come from, you know, a podcast or a book, you know, so which is great, and that's why that stuff's out there. But yeah, it's interesting to hear, because some people don't; they just do it all on their own, and other people, you know, turns out they had 10 people pushing them along. So it's always interesting to hear, you know, who helped get you where you're at.
For sure, it's kind of like, it's almost an abstract thing, and I always sort of like looked at a mentor, and I think that's almost a more of an East Coast thing in certain ways, at least in like university life. You find your mentor and they will help guide your career. And I sort of felt once I moved to Los Angeles, like, yeah, the idea of me finding a mentor and this person is going to help guide me just felt so almost absurd. Like, that's not going to happen, that you're dreaming. And in the place of dreams, I still felt like I was dreaming. So finding that person, or hopefully the universe helping connect those two people, is something that I definitely wish happened more to just people trying to do things and create things and get somewhere and release their ideas into the world, for sure.
Yeah, I think you hit it, because there is that fine balance. It's like you can tell everybody your dreams and aspirations and hope that one of them becomes a positive mentor, but you can also tell everyone your dreams and aspirations, and then all of a sudden everyone you told becomes, your critic, or they're laying out the bad side of things, whereas in your head you're like, no, I'm 100,000,000% confident that this is going to work, so I'm just going to keep it to myself and bottle this up until the top bursts, and
for sure. Sometimes it's this battle, right? Sometimes you have to actually protect your ideas and let them sort of grow and cultivate with you before you can release them to the world for everyone to tear them apart.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what I mean? You have to kind of, it's like a plant or something. You have to, they got to become strong enough to survive before you can really expose them.
Yeah, you kind of, so I mean, I think what we're saying, it's like you have to kind of fish and put it out there and see what people think, but you got to be confident in your idea and vision and believe in yourself and throw some passion behind it, and just go for it.
For sure.
Which I guess brings up the next question I was thinking about is, how do you remain confident enough, collected enough to go through making something like this when we always laugh saying that Mother Teresa had haters. How do you sift through this madness of a few years of writing and directing and producing this movie and not let it beat you up so much that you just like dump the project? Because I've started a lot of things before that have lost steam because I start letting outside comments and influences slow it down. And I think it's really impressive to see something through, especially on this scale, in the same breath when you're like in such a unique position. It's not like you went out and wrote a movie on college football players, like a Varsity Blues type, number two. So I guess deeper in that question is like, do you have some way of de-stressing? Do you have something that you tell yourself in the face of haters? Like, is it, no, I know what I'm doing? Is it, do you revert are you one of those that takes it for a day, you curl up in your hole, and then you bust out the other side and you're like, fuck them! Like, you get where I'm coming from here?
Yeah. I'm like everyone, I think, in that I definitely have moments of doubt and times of doubt, and you question things and you hear things that aren't always that positive, and it causes you to sort of be either self-conscious or insecure. But ultimately, and I've always had with certain things in life, and previously this was sports, a certain quiet confidence to myself and belief in my ability. And I think, everyone needs to try to find a way to access that. And ultimately, I really do genuinely feel like I'm trying to create content to both entertain people and challenge social norms that I disagree with. And ultimately, I really believe I'm putting something out into the world that, whether it includes profanity, is a positive thing. And at the core of me, I think that's what allows me to sort of keep pushing through, what is a very long journey in making a feature film.
Yeah, the profanity, you can listen to our last podcast. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out.
Chivalry's not dead, but profanity.
Well, I think profanity expresses emotion. That's why I use it.
In our own heads, I think 90% of us are dropping an F-bomb here and there, so it's okay to be real.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have... is there a specific way that you would de-stress or take these on? Like, do you have any sort of... when I say meditation practice, and for anyone listening, I'm not saying you're sitting on a pad, sitting lotus, palms in the air, and meditating, but like, is there something that you do to de-stress? Because I know there without a doubt it was a fun process for you, a learning process for you, but also stressful. Like, I mean, I'm just assuming. So is there something you do? Like, is there fitness? Do you play video games? Is it like you cook? Is there one thing that you do that you can think of that de-stresses you? Is it family? Do you just have a chat with your brother? I know you're tight with your brothers. Like, what I'm pulling at here is, how can we help other people in stressful situations?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely get stressed out for sure, and the biggest thing I've always returned to is fitness and working out. In New York, I was lucky enough to have a group to do that with, and that helped me kind of continually push forward or sort of find clarity on difficult points throughout the journey. And also just to be able to work with a bunch of different personalities in a bunch of different ways. You have to have sort of a level head and be able to hear people out and understand where they're coming from. Now that I'm on the West Coast, luckily I have you guys and Launch, and that's been really helpful in sort of keep pushing the ball up the hill, and to have a group of people and a community to work out with. I think there's all kinds of benefits that come from it, and that's definitely been sort of like a pillar in my life.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You hit on it right at the end there, the group part in the community. It's like, we get stressed out, we clam up, and we then start listening to the only dialogue we have because we're alone, which is the dialogue in our heads. And if you're anything like me, where we were talking about last night at the Santa Monica Stairs, that 4 out of 7 days of the week I'm batshit crazy. And I just want to flip it so that only 3 days out of the week I'm batshit crazy, and the other 4 I'm on point. And I always realize that when I'm in those crazy moments, like, for me, the best I am is, even if I don't want to face these people, is when I actually meet with a group. And now I'm with the group, and there's all these different dialogues going on, and I'm out of my head, and now I'm sharing that space, that thinking space, with other people, vibing off of them. And
it's usually a good positive
and it's usually, like, people together, generally it's happiness, like, when you think about when people come together, usually there's a nice vibe going on. So yeah, I think that's true. I'm happy you pulled on that one, is the groups, being part of groups, having a tribe, something to reflect back to, substantial.
And it pulls on your former college football days. Brent's being humble, but this man has the stickiest hands.
Yo, you do have the stickiest hands.
And this dude would run under routes across the middle, like you don't want to be running these routes, and he would just be snagging every single pass that was thrown him, no matter who was coming at him.
Snag, then shake and bake. I'm picturing like a hard jab step. Bam!
Yeah.
No, the other way. Bam!
The sharpest routes. I mean, this man's post corner route was incredible.
Thanks, guys.
That is true. So actually, let's not skip over the fact that you I don't actually. This would be fun because I don't know much about it. You were on the Friday Night Lights television show out of college.
So after college, I really wanted to pursue sports and football as far as I could, and they're exaggerating, but I did have a solid career at Georgetown.
No exaggeration.
And so I signed with I signed with an arena football team out of college.
That's right.
Which was really, really cool experience, and also the talent in that league is pretty wild. Even I, knowing about it, was impressed once I got there. But through arena football, I got linked into doing stunt work on the set for Friday Night Lights, which was something I wanted to do, and something our quarterback at Georgetown knew I was very interested in film and entertainment. So he called me up and it was like, hey, I have a connection. I think they could use you on this set. Would you be interested in being on set? And I was like, this is a no-brainer. So in the off seasons, of Arena Football, I was working on the set Friday Night Lights, which was great to be exposed to, you know, a fully functioning TV set and see how it all
That's a big show.
goes. Yeah, it was a big show. And to shoot the football scenes, that's their biggest, you know, the biggest scenes they're shooting. So there's huge staff that's, you know, huge crew that's on board for those days and those shoots.
Where were they shooting that? Or where were you shooting that?
So we filmed 3 seasons that I was on. I think that this show was 5 seasons or 6 seasons total. We filmed all of those in Austin, Texas.
And you were just doing stunt stuff, so you didn't have like parts, but yeah.
Well, so because I looked more like the actors than a lot of other football players out there, I would do mostly specifically the stunts for some of the lead characters. So if they had to make a catch and take a hit, I would do that.
Gotcha. That's just totally right.
Because you're used to taking hits.
keep them pretty and on screen, and I'll take the hit, I guess. But a lot of them were actually pretty athletic guys and did a decent amount of their own stunts as well.
Did you ever? So what's the stunt? What's the like? Do you literally catch a ball and just get like you got to catch the ball and get clobbered by a safety, or like what is? Tell us about that.
These guys get pretty good at knowing how to do the stunt work for football, and all of these guys a lot of them played at UT, so big time college football. Some even played in the NFL, and like me, a lot came from the Arena Football League. So everyone's, you know, pretty good at their craft. You're only doing so many live takes, so it's like, you know, even if you're taking a big hit, you only take that 2 or 3 times. And the rest will be from wider angles, or, you know, there's they're just shooting the fans in the stands, so you don't have to take the big hit that many times. So it's like, it's relatively reasonable, and you only have to take like a really big hit a few times. So it wasn't terrible. Every now and then, you know, there's a couple hits that you're like, man, good thing I'm getting paid for this.
How long did you play in the Arena Football League for?
So I only played 2 seasons in the Arena Football League, and I was going into my 3rd, and I was having some injury issues. The league this was right after, you know, 2008, which was a pretty big crisis in our economy. So the league didn't have the same money and salaries it used to, and it just sort of stopped making sense for me to continue to pursue. So going into my 3rd season, I was training, had some interest from a team in Jacksonville, and it just didn't really make sense anymore, and I sort of stepped away from it all.
During this time, were you... Because I remember you writing jokes and writing scripts when we would take bus rides to games. Were you still doing that stuff when you were, you know, on set at Friday Night Lights and, you know, you're playing for your Arena Football League? Were you still kind of thinking about this vision that you had to create movies?
For sure. I definitely never stopped thinking about it. Like anyone and everyone, you know, there were times where I probably should have written more, or I was always recording jokes and like writing little nuggets that I thought were interesting about human behavior and stuff like that. Yeah, I was always writing, but probably not as much as I wish I could have, but I'll always feel that way. You know, I'll never feel like I'm writing enough.
And that's what kind of keeps you going.
Yeah.
So when I think of Brent Kraft, I think of a lot of passion, and I don't mean like you're not like crazy outspoken, you're not walking around like yelling your words, but when it comes down to the moment, whatever it is that you're in, I really think passion. It seems like you get the most out of whatever it is that you're invested in. I mean, we're sitting here, excuse me, and we know Brent really well, and from a size factor as a college athlete, there's nothing. I mean, you're not a little guy by any means, but you're not a big dude, and it seems like you drove most of your potential to the top. Like, you got a lot out of your potential at Georgetown, and then you move into arena football, so you literally even surpassed what was probably, I don't know, what other people expected was possible of you. But then once you finally got to that stage of arena football, which was like, oh wow, and actually thinking back, I forgot that you did that, which is just tremendous. You get there, but then that it's time to like call it quits, and you went on to the other things. So I guess what I want to ask is, where does this passion come from? Do you have family members that you learned this from? Was it something you noticed when you were in the third grade that you just had more passion than the average person? I mean, was it a specific event, or was it people saying you can't? So I guess that's what I want to pull on. And then part two of that would be, how do you know when passion might be time to transition that passion into something else? Because it's easy to get caught up in the name of passion.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't ever think about it that much in terms of like, am I more passionate than most people? I have always thought, and then made it a point of emphasis with myself to never scale my passion back unless it was going to sort of impede the interests of the team. I always sort of felt like, a lot of guys were scared to show emotion and things like that. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. This is me. I'm going to lay it out there. And if you don't like it and I know it's for a good cause or purpose, then so be it. And I firmly believe that. And it's something I'd like to continue to live with. But I think that if you really dig something, if you really want to push yourself towards something, like you don't need to be shy about it. And I'm actually a pretty shy guy, but when it comes to something I'm interested in, I don't want to go through life and look back and be like, you know what, I didn't express that interest, or you know what, I really loved that and I wanted to pursue that, but I was scared to. So I feel like so often we sort of temper ourselves to fit in with society or what we think is expected of us, as opposed to just allowing ourselves to be who we are. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I always felt, even when I was younger, that, certain coaches would draw attention to it and not always love it. And some coaches absolutely loved it. But I always sort of thought that, when I'm playing something, I'm going to let it all hang out and I'm going to get the most out of myself and the team and the experience, because I would hate to be on the other end of the spectrum and not just be living and really putting it out there, because I think to sort of constantly govern yourself just isn't a great way to live life, and I think at the end of it you're going to be really disappointed. So that's I guess to some degree my perspective.
Yeah, and that's real talk. Because the thing is, it's like your passion, when I think back, it's so authentic and organic that it's not this facade. Like, this guy's not screaming through his face mask from anywhere but his heart. And I remember thinking back, there were very few people on the team that brought that sort of passion to the table. And even if it was you coming at me, I actually said this to Rob over the last few weeks when we've just been talking about sitting down and have this conversation, how like Brent's passion never got in the way of me enjoying Brent's company still. It was like we would jaw it up per se. Or, I made in that post, like post-Whistler shenanigans, but I never once remember being upset with you off the field or even just outside of that moment, because the passion was so real. So I think in comparison, it's like when someone's telling you what to do, but when it's good actual criticism from the bottom of the heart meant to make positive change, you accept that the right way, right? And you go ahead and you make a change, and then all of a sudden everyone's getting better. So when passion's really coming from the gut and really showing up like that, it not only makes you better, but everyone around you. And that's one thing I certainly remember about you in the playing days, was that your passion influenced and trickled into other people to try to get the most out of them. So it doesn't surprise me that you're where you're at, because you're once again getting the most bang for your buck. And obviously, in producing a movie, creating a movie like this, you've now brought actresses and actors to push themselves. So I think it's really unique and cool to see how passion alone is this driving force. So rad. Totally rad.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. And I do always think, to touch on what you were saying, like, and I think Zach got this about me. Even if you can dig into someone, that's not always a mean thing. A lot of people are scared to have these uncomfortable conversations or moments. But I think that's how we improve each other and get each other to sort of new heights. And by no means am I anywhere where I want to be. So to some degree, if someone, when people dig into me, and that's happened along this journey as well, if it comes from the right place and they make a good point, I think we all got to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, fair, and try to do better.
Yeah, well, it's almost a compliment. It's like, you can do better.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're not like, right now you're small fries, let's be XL.
Yeah.
You know, and when someone believes in you like that, even if it's coming in a critical way, it's like, take a step back. Like, I think it's always good to pause instead of just like immediately deflect because it seemed insulting at first. But really, it's like, holy shit! Like, they actually believe in me and are expecting this of me rather than that, and this being something that's even bigger, better. It might be a little bit more work, but you know, taking that what seems as a negative and turning it into a positive and letting it drive you to the next phase. So yeah.
And I think one thing you said that was important that we talked about is when you're being yourself, you can really drop into yourself and be fully confident in taking those steps that might be risky steps, like putting a movie like this together, because you're being yourself. You know?
For sure.
I think it could be a lot easier that way.
Absolutely.
And you have to have that confidence and passion, and also that patience to just, like, not everybody started at the top as a movie star or as Steven Spielberg, you know, like you.
Except for Steven Spielberg.
I know they always say this stuff, but wait, did everybody just start there?
He did kind of start towards the top with Jaws.
Yeah, you said yesterday everyone starts at zero, which is true.
I mean, even Steven Spielberg, he just had a different run at it, and it's easy to say he started at the top. But there's a guy that was making movies since he was a child, you know what I mean? So he put in that decade before he even got to the age where you can work.
Where did the passion for you of storytelling start? Like, how did that kind of happen? Have you always been like that as a kid, just like wanting to, you know, tell stories, put movies together?
Definitely always wanted to put movies together and was sort of fascinated by movies and always felt like for some reason, you know, I was kind of particular with my free time, but for some reason consuming more films I always felt like was a good thing. I always felt like if it was another movie I watched that was like good. I don't know, it was like building this catalog or library in my head. And I definitely was always fascinated with making movies and iMovie and creating stuff, and I took some of those classes in high school. And I was very fascinated with humanity, meaning how people respond in social situations, what they say, what it really means when they're saying what they say, the nuances that go with it. I was always sort of like oddly, in an OCD way, fascinated by that. I think storytelling is something that came later, and I think I'm still a beginner in the storytelling realm. And I think most filmmakers, if you look at their career, you know, they have a lot of this raw talent early on, and they become great storytellers over the course of a longer period of time. So hopefully I'll improve that side of things with each film if I get so lucky.
You will.
You will. I feel it on that. It's like the first podcast I listened to. It's like, delete the whole thing. I sound terrible. Now I'm at like a 4 out of 10. But hopefully by November I'll be a 5 out of 10.
Long way to go.
How do you like hearing your voice? I hate hearing my voice.
The first time, I mean, hearing my voice, first off, I always forget how big of a skier bro I sound like when I talk. Like, I don't think of it. I've been doing this for forever. This is how I talk. But I can remember my brother making jokes like, you know, a decade ago, like, dude, you don't have to say dude every like 3, you know. And then I hear my voice in it, but No, you get more and more used to it. But yes, it is. It's funny at first. You just those little. I don't know why. It's like being on film or with a microphone hooked up. All of a sudden, you feel more vulnerable. It's like official now. It's down on the audio or on the picture, and someone can see it. So yeah, there is this
make comments on it,
inherent vulnerability to recording. It's really funny, but no, it's. I think that actually, with that, and not to be all like sentimental about everything we talk about, but I think it's just like about being real and just being you. And whenever you're the most real, I think that's when you can literally tell over the microphone on the audio of when somebody is being themselves, or at least I can easily tell when I'm judging myself when I was trying to be this host rather than just being myself and hanging out and having a conversation. And then all the best material comes along. So it's like, just be you, man. Let your freak flag fly. Whether you're on film, on microphone, whatever, you're going to get the best out of that conversation. I mean, it's like you go to a job interview and you show up and if you're not totally yourself, that person's not even interviewing you. And I think we've all done that. I certainly have, where you show up for this job interview and you, just because of what the guidelines were for applying and this and that, you're not giving them a proper description or even an interview on who you are. Whereas how beneficial would it be to just sit down with the future employer and be like, what do you do? Like, what are your hobbies? Like, what interests you? Like, do you, and just paint this picture of who you actually are, and then transition to how that's applicable to whatever job you're applying for. Whereas I think usually you just show up and it's like, you're trying to
get the job.
So you're piecing together all these things in your head to answer the 5 questions that you saw online. So it's, so it's like, if we could all just keep it a little bit more real, we'd probably like ourselves more, and those around us would probably like you more too, because everyone's so damn unique and has this authentic value to add. And I think it really comes across just from a simple little chat over a microphone. How real you're actually keeping it. So,
because then you get the job, and then it's not the right fit because you have to be someone else at every the office.
Yeah, or they think they hired someone that they didn't. It's like, no, I'm not like that. I just did that so I could get this job.
You did a choir, man. I remember sitting
so I could pay my rent
with a suit on. I feel so grimy sitting in this interview suit.
I've never quite felt right.
I don't even own a suit anymore. Probably doesn't shock you.
Well, I was just gonna say that. I was like, that doesn't feel shocking at all, knowing you.
No suit anymore. No suit at all. I wear all black all the time.
That makes sense.
It's just easier. Yeah. You couldn't hang the suit in the van the right way when I was doing that. I actually gave away. There was this day when I was in the van that I was like, I'm gonna overhaul my life, and I see this like clothing giveaway bin, at the gas station. And I look at it, and I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of everything. I'm gonna make a life transition right now. I'm just gonna have my work clothes, my running gear, and my van, and that's it. I don't have to think about anything else. I am simplifying and just got rid of everything.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how I ended up here wearing just one color all the time. Simplified it. I wanted to simplify it. Yeah, I think that it's been an important piece of my life, actually, is simplifying everything.
For sure.
I actually do have a suit hanging up in my van right now.
FYI.
I went to a wedding.
I was gonna say you gotta be wedding ready.
Yeah, wedding ready, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's those interviews are tough.
So you popped around a lot in the process of making this film, right? Or were you in one place? Like, I know we're in your apartment now. You live alone. This place is pretty nice, Brent. But were you? And I think I know the answer. But like, you were sleeping on some couches. Did you have some side hustle? Like, or were you just like saving money from a previous gig and skating through? I mean, what was that like?
So it was actually all of the above. When I was on set for Friday Night Lights, I was also doing real estate in Austin. That was, oddly enough, probably the most lucrative time of my career, if you could call it that. And that helped me when I first moved to New York. I was living off of a lot of those commissions. Then I ran out of money, and that's because I quit the job that I took there to write my first script, which was kind of a mess and was definitely a learning process, a curve. Then I moved to Boston, and I was finishing that script with a friend who lived in Boston, living on his couch, which was an interesting time in my life. Then I moved to Los Angeles, and I worked at too many nightlife jobs. I was in like 6 different nightclubs or something. I was working in a nightclub 6 nights a week at 3 different nightclubs, and at one while also working at a restaurant in Neiman Marcus. So it was definitely, there's definitely been some sort of a lot of odd jobs along the way, and a lot of moves. I've lived in Austin, Texas. I've lived in Boston. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Amarillo. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in Washington, D.C.
Where's Amarillo?
Right? So it's been a lot of moves and a lot of sort of, trying to adapt each step of the way just to kind of keep it going, to keep the sort of take the next step.
Can I get a...
Yeah.
Cause I'm a hustler, baby.
I don't know if I'm a hustler.
You're a total hustler.
I'm just trying to finish what I started.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I think that, we can pull on that a little bit too, is that, like, you got to really want it, right? And you can't be ashamed of working in a nightclub or, moving some dishes, doing whatever it is. You got to drop the ego and make do, right? I mean, jeez, there's people see, we're all in this world of Instagram today, and I think we're pretty much all just as guilty as the other person, and then all you see is the good. And then you follow this one person per se, like yourself. And if I were to follow Brent Crab, and it's not like you're crazy posting all the time and like, throwing it in people's faces like, oh, look at this beautiful life that I live. But what I'm pulling at is that you're usually only seeing the good, and there's so much struggle in between, and I think it's important not to forget that. And even if you're out there listening right now and you're in some particular struggle, it's like embrace it and drive that struggle wagon, because you're gonna have rough times and you got to have that grit. And
I think you can't. I think it's terrible, and believe me, I've thought this myself and given myself some self-pity. But you can't do that. You can't sort of say like, "Woe is me." I think you have to appreciate that you're getting the opportunity to pursue something you love, and of the amount of hours, I went to a nice school with these 2 lovely gentlemen. But the amount of hours I've poured into a paying job since graduation, I'm now 31 years old, probably more so than anything has been that of a glorified busboy. Like, I literally work table service in Hollywood at nightclubs. And not to sound grandiose, or perhaps there's a much better word for it, but I think I'm really lucky, the fact that I've gotten to make a feature film, and if that's the price I had to pay, I think that's hardly a sacrifice to get to do something you really want to do.
Dude, that's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Whoa. We just showed up at gratitude. I mean, it really comes back to reflection and having some damn gratitude, right? And it's like, we get so out of line that we start expecting these things, and this is just from my personal experience, but then you take a step back and think about where you're at and the ride, and it's just like you got to be grateful for those ups and downs. Otherwise, it's like, if you're always up, that might get boring. If you're always down, that sucks too. So it's like, you got to appreciate that ride, I think. And
for sure. And I think when you're younger, right, you expect it all to be kind of given to you a little bit quicker, and then the life sort of teaches you. At least most people. Some people have had a more fortunate road than us. But life teaches you that you really gotta hustle to earn it to get where you want to go, and even then nothing's really guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you got to keep hustling, right? It's like, think about your journey. It's been this long, and then you finally put together this movie over the last year or two, and then now you have this movie that's hysterical that think that's going to catch like wildfire, but it's like, okay, can't stop hustling now because guess what? You got to sell the, we got to move this movie around. So it's like, it's a constant grind,
For sure. For
so
sure.
kudos and, good luck on moving this thing around.
Need luck.
No, I need it and I'll take it. And good luck to this podcast. I think this is. I'm going to be very excited to someday say I was on the third episode. Second guest. Someday I'll look back and I'll feel really honored to be
on episode 200. You can say you were a pioneer.
And I'll be very excited because I think that this is going to be great.
No, when I was talking about this last night with you, we really appreciate you coming out and always going for it at the workouts. It means a lot to us, and we really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean,
your energy is just super contagious, and it means a lot to to have you out there.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's just. It's gonna be this is a great thing. Really, what we're trying to do here is just tell as many stories as possible. I think everybody has a unique story, and yours is just incredibly unique in its own right. I mean, you're just another person that needs their story to be told. I mean, the more stories we can tell, the more human stories we can tell. It's basically pulling together as much information as we can and delivering that to the world. So it's like, if you have a bunch of different books to delve into and pull information from, well, then you have more to sift through and more examples to go off of. And, I think a big part of this podcast is the idea that, like, you don't have to do this alone. Don't make it harder than it is. There's already information out there, and it's closer to you than you think. It might be might be right there within your friends group, and life already has an outline, but just put your information into those bullet points of the outline. So it's super helpful for myself and for Rob and for hopefully anyone listening to just hear more stories from more people that have some great insight. So that's really what we're doing. So it's a big thank you to you just for the opportunity to sit down and have a little conversation and chat about like these different subjects of, who would think that you can just talk about a movie, but then actually get into life on the more important things. And no matter what career or field you're in, it seems that we all have the same struggle in life, which is, pushing through the muck and, keep trudging through the muck. Yeah. I mean, it's always going to be like that. And it's super helpful to hear how yourself and others have done it. And, I certainly see a lot of success for you. Like, no matter what happens, let's be real, the Ladylike movie is it is a great thing, and I think you're going to find great success in it. But regardless, just with your attitude alone and your thirst for doing more, this is like the first stone to this massive development, I think.
Massive.
I hope you guys are right. I'm not sure about that. I hope you're right, man.
But yeah, so I mean,
it's been really interesting to just hear about the fire and the drive that you've had, since we've known you playing college ball 10 years ago, all the way, through, all the odd jobs, through putting a movie together that just seems like a logistical nightmare in my head, and the fire that you had to put it all together, keep pushing, and to put an amazing product onto the big screen.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And the little screen.
Yeah, that's right. And the medium screen.
Yeah. iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, go check it out. Ladylike, it was a really awesome movie, and I haven't laughed like that in a movie in a while.
Thanks, man. No, there's nothing that sort of makes me more happy with this project than hearing that, so I appreciate it.
The whole theater is roaring.
And thank you for having me on this.
Yeah, of course. So that was good. That was concise. We got a lot out of a little bit there. You got any more you want to really pull on. We can do part 2 at some point.
Yeah, part 2.
I'm not gonna force it here.
Part 2, we'll talk about part 2 when Ladylike is in like all the theaters.
Yeah, that'd be great. We should catch up.
Yeah,
and, like,
catch up. Brent's like, getting Oscar.
That will actually.
We'll interview after your first Oscar.
Yeah, that's a great call. Let's put it in park for now, and if Brent's not too big time for us in a few months here, maybe we could catch up and hear about how it's going. And
I think that would be cool to hear the progression of we have this conversation now. You just dropped your first movie, and then 6 months to a year. Who the hell knows what you're going to be up to?
Oh, man,
that'd be really cool.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Brent, thank you for sharing your story. Once again, this is the Launch Podcast. You can check us out on iTunes at Launch Podcast. You can find us individually on Instagram at starbuck.rob, at Zach Barbiez. That's ZACBARBIASZ. Hopefully we'll do enough of these and it'll catch enough traction. I won't have to spell that out every time. It's like when the UPS guy shows up at the place, I just sign Smith every time. But you can find Brent on Instagram at Brent Craft. You can find the Ladylike Movie on Instagram at Ladylike Movie. Music today has been brought to you by The Palms. That is The Palms Music. They are local out of Los Angeles. Check them out. Awesome album they just dropped. You can find them on social media at The Palms Music. You can also find them, of course, on iTunes, YouTube, every single platform. They're way more big time than any of us are, so check them out. Give them a look. Ben and Johnny, thank you so much for letting us use your tunes. Thank you all for tuning in today. One more high five to Brent. Awesome guest. Super stoked for the opportunity to have you on the show. Looking forward to many more of these. Y'all rock. Thanks for tuning in. See you all at the top.